Welcome back, scholars. Today we're going to talk about primary and secondary sources and how to differentiate and how to use them. There are two types, of course, of information sources, primary and secondary sources. So what does that mean exactly? Well, and why is it important? Well, primary sources are the original documents, original works. Primary sources are produced at the time of the event without interpretation or a commentary. Example of that would be, let me make my camera large here. This, the Constitution of the United States, obviously not the original, but this would be a primary source. This was produced by the Continental Congress and the Founding Fathers. A secondary source would be like, for example, a history book. But let's delve a little deeper into this. Okay, examples of primary sources, books or monographs, journals or journal articles. Now, these can be either primary or secondary. It's what makes it a primary. Same with magazines, newspaper articles, internet resources, and reports. Also, letters, photographs, theses, poems, and patents. These are specifically primary sources. Letters, of course, are like, for example, the letters home of soldiers from the Civil War, or photographs from a historical event or conflict. Theses, a thesis, that person's actual writing, poems, patents, etc. Now, what makes reports and internet sources secondary? Well, it could be from a reporter in the field, if it's a report, or it could be someone who is reporting on the action afterward from what they've heard from witnesses. Interviews also are seen as primary sources. Now, what's a secondary source? Well, those are sources that interpret or analyze primary sources. It is the commentary or the opinion or the reportage of the events or the sources that someone else has read and digested for you. Secondary sources are further removed from the events described or mentioned in the primary source. Okay. Here are examples of those. Biographies, as opposed to an autobiography. A biography is the history of the life of a famous person or event or place written by someone else. Someone who wasn't maybe there at the time, but has gone through and done research and interviews and that sort of things. Books and monographs. Electronic databases are examples of secondary sources, like EBSCOhost or Gale Literary Resources from our library. These are the databases we're talking about. They're secondary sources because they contain documents written by people writing about the events who weren't necessarily there. Dictionaries, of course, encyclopedias, histories, handbooks. Now, history is, oftentimes the people who experienced it are no longer there. We just only have the historians and people who wrote about them after the fact. Handbooks, of course. Review articles. Review articles essentially just talk about the primary source. Textbooks, any index, and any bibliography used to locate primary sources are secondary sources. Now let's take a look here. Primary versus secondary source. We have art, like the original artwork, that's primary source. An article critiquing a piece of art is the secondary. In engineering, we'll say a patent, that is your primary source. That is the document ascribing the ownership and the rights and the original intellectual property. Derwent Patents Index, that's something that allows you to go through and see if anyone else has patented this particular idea or invention. Okay, that would be a secondary source. History, like I said, the original not the original U.S. Constitution, but a book about the Constitution, like a book I have in my library called Good, Honest Men, okay, about the Founding Fathers. Science, an original journal article, okay. That is the research written and published by the people who did the experimentation and the studies. Biological abstracts, those are essentially one paragraph writings explaining what the article contains. It's a compressed version of it. Secondary source. Now, how do you select the right source? Well, in academia, we tend to favor primary sources over secondary sources. So here's how to know what the right one is. Current information. If you need current information, you might try a newspaper or the World Wide Web. Scholarly articles. If you need scholarly articles, you would look for a journal. For example, our library database has a listing of journal articles and journals on various subjects. Popular interest articles, you probably want to go with a magazine. Lots of organized information, well, then you'll need a book or encyclopedia. It gives more, a book and an encyclopedia has the ability to be much more comprehensive because it isn't restricted to column space the way a journal or newspaper or magazine is. To find article citations, you need to find an index or database. By the way, our library, if you go and you find your sources there, oftentimes they have the option where it will create your citation for you that you can copy and paste into your works cited page. Save you some work there. It also gives the option of MLA or APA style, so keep that in mind. All right, there we go. Use a book when you're looking for a lot of information on a topic. To put your topic in context with other important issues, that you can't go wrong with a book. Even to find historical information, also use a book. To find summaries of research to support an argument. All this is useful. All this you'll find in a book as opposed to a World Wide Web source or various others. Use an encyclopedia if you're looking for background information on a topic. Okay. Encyclopedias are great because they give you a large view of think of it as a large overhead view of your subject. You can see all the various aspects of it. And when you're trying to find key ideas or important dates or concepts too, usually encyclopedias have historical information, and it will produce it in a fairly succinct form. Okay. Now there are two types of encyclopedias. There's the general encyclopedia, like Encyclopedia Britannica or Wikipedia. These provide concise overviews on a wide range of topics. Then you have subject-specific encyclopedias. They contain in-depth information focusing on one field of study. Okay, like the Encyclopedia of Engineering or the Encyclopedia of Quantum Physics or what have you. Okay. Characteristics of subject-specific encyclopedias. These are given articles given background information. Encyclopedia articles usually include bibliographies. It's a works cited page, basically. Kind of like when you scroll down to the bottom of Wikipedia and you see all the databases or websites and sources that they consulted for their production of the article. Encyclopedia articles also provide information to help you narrow down your topic. That way, you say you're doing a paper on global warming, it will help you find specific aspects of global warming that you might be interested in looking into, like auto emissions or factory emissions. The use of incandescent bulbs versus LED bulbs and so forth. So encyclopedia is a great way to help narrow down your topic for your thesis from far too broad down to something you can work with. Okay. For finding factual information to answer your specific questions, also use a handbook to verify data or solve problems in your subject area. Now then, when you're doing scholarly research, one of the things we rely on is journals. Journals are put together by other scholars. This helps you find out what has been studied in your topic. So if you're looking at a particular aspect you think is you have a new take on, you can go and find a journal and see what has been written about it so far. You can also use their research to build on your own. To find bibliographies that point to other relevant research is also good use of journals. It will help inform your own writing. Okay. Use a magazine to find information and opinions about pop culture. Now, magazines are written for a general audience, and they're going to give you the up-to-date information and it's sort of a broad view of it, give you the nuts and bolts of it, the news, sports, and weather of your topic. It doesn't go too deep into specifics, but it can give you a very fine overview of the topic. And to find general articles for people who are not necessarily specialists about the topic, but maybe the topic affects. Okay, magazines, perfectly good sources. You don't want to rely too heavily on them. You want the bulk of your scholarly research to be in scholarly journals and books. But a magazine can also help inform the topic in a lot of ways there. Use a newspaper to find current information about international, national, and local events. Although newspapers are kind of out of vogue, they're not as popular as they used to be. In fact, they're a lot harder to find. But still, they are useful. And for a long time, they were a great source. They were essentially the first draft of history. They also can be useful to find editorials, commentaries, or expert or popular opinions. In a newspaper, you can run the gamut from what the experts to the common man thinks about any particular subject. When you want to find articles on your topic in magazines, journals, or newspapers, you will use a database or index, like we talked about in our library lecture here. These will help you find what information is out there and how to locate it. Search terms like in EBSCOhost, Gale Literary Literature, all the other databases that our library has access to. It is a quick and dirty way to find the information. In grad school, in fact, 99% of my research for all my papers there that I did for my PhD were done and located through the library databases. So, great way to find information you need very quickly. Okay, use the World Wide Web, but use it at your own risk. You can use it to find current information, but it's not always the most accurate. Now, the thing is, the World Wide Web has the benefit of getting the information to you quickly, but like with news reports and newspaper articles, it may not be the most factual information. It could be the most factual information at that moment, and which will be changed later as more information comes out. Also, a lot of times as I'm fond of saying, the World Wide Web is kind of like the Old West. It's lawless. There's not always policing or a dedication to accuracy or currency. You think of all the parody journals out there that look like actual journals, like The Onion, for example, or the Babylon Bee. These are parody sites that look like actual news sites. And they produce their work tongue-in-cheek, but not all journals do that. And some of them are just, bad info. Okay, so there you go. That's our lecture on primary and secondary sources. Try to favor primary sources if you can, especially in literature and in historical work. But hopefully they'll bring you up to speed. All right, good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.